I walked into the small, dimly lit examination room, clipboard in hand, my heart beating just a bit faster than usual. It wasn't my first time assisting with a patient's exam, but something about this particular assignment made me feel a little off balance. As a nurse at a busy downtown clinic, I'd seen just about everything, but what was about to unfold with Mr. Warren wasn't something I'd ever prepared for. He was a quiet man in his early 50s and usually kept to himself. He came in for routine, blood pressure and cardiac checks, nothing unusual. I had assisted him before, but today felt different from the moment I stepped into the room. He was already on the bed, sitting up, his posture stiff and uncertain. His eyes darted around the room, and he shifted uncomfortably under the paper-thin hospital gown. "Good afternoon, Mr. Warren," I said gently, offering a soft smile as I walked in. "You doing all right today?" He nodded quickly, but I could see the unease behind his eyes. Something wasn't right. "I'll just help you get settled for the exam," I said, stepping closer to adjust the monitoring equipment and straighten his gown. But as I moved, I noticed something unexpected through the thin fabric. My gaze involuntarily dropped, catching the unmistakable shape beneath the folds of the gown. I froze for a second, then my face flushed, and I quickly looked away, reminding myself to stay professional. I was a nurse. I'd been trained for awkward situations. Things like this happen sometimes. It was just anatomy. Still, the way it presented itself, so sudden and without warning, shook me more than I expected. "Let's go ahead and get you positioned." "For the doctor," I said, clearing my throat and reaching again to adjust the sheet. But as I moved, he shifted again, too quickly this time. The edge of the gown slid off completely. Everything was exposed. I gasped, instinctively turning my head, trying to recover my composure. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. Do I address it? Leave the room? Pretend nothing happened? Before I could decide, the door creaked open behind me. "Oh, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt," came a voice, another nurse poking her head inside. She blinked once, clearly sensing something was off, then retreated quickly, pulling the door shut again. I turned back to Mr. Warren, who now looked mortified. He hurriedly tried to cover himself, but I could still feel the tension hanging thick in the air. His face was flushed, and he stared down at his lap, avoiding eye contact. "I'm really sorry about that," he mumbled. I took a breath, trying to regain control. "It's okay. Let's just get you ready for your exam, all right?" As I turned to grab some new linens and supplies, I suddenly felt his hand brush against mine. I froze again. It was light, almost accidental, but something about the way it lingered made me question whether it was truly a mistake or an unspoken signal. My skin prickled, and for a moment I stood completely still, uncertain how to respond. My professional instinct told me to ignore it, move on, but my gut told me to be careful. Just then, the door opened again. This time it was Dr. Anders, completely unaware of what had just taken place. "Everything all right in here?" he asked cheerfully, flipping through the patient chart as he entered. "Yes, doctor," I said quickly, stepping aside. "Mr. Warren's ready." I didn't look back. I needed to get out of the room. As the doctor began his routine questions, I quietly exited, my pulse still racing. The door clicked shut behind me, but the discomfort remained. Later that afternoon, as I was making my usual rounds and catching up on chart updates, my phone buzzed with a message from the front desk. "Mr. Warren has asked specifically for Nurse Jenna for tomorrow's follow-up." I stared at the message, my stomach twisting. Why me? Had I done something wrong? Was it just because I had seen something I wasn't meant to? Or had something deeper started to take root? The next day came faster than I expected. I found myself standing in front of Mr. Warren's room again, taking a deep breath before knocking. I told myself to stay calm, professional, detached. But when the door opened and our eyes met, the unease returned instantly. This time he smiled, But it wasn't a shy, embarrassed expression from the day before. It was different, more confident, controlled. "I've been thinking about you," he said softly. My heart skipped before I forced a light chuckle. "Let's just focus on your checkup, Mr. Warren," I said firmly, trying to keep the conversation on track. But even as I moved toward his foreline, my thoughts raced. Something wasn't right here, and deep down, I had the uneasy feeling that this was just the beginning. The next morning, I walked into the clinic determined to keep my distance. The previous day had left me unsettled. I kept reminding myself that I was overthinking it, that maybe Mr. Warren was just awkward and embarrassed, and I was letting it all get to my head. But then I remembered his request. He had specifically asked for me again, and that smile, that wasn't in my imagination. I kept busy with other patients, handling morning vitals and paperwork. But around 10 a.m., the front desk buzzed me again. "Mr. Warren is ready in exam room 3. He's asked for you specifically." My stomach flipped. I grabbed my chart and squared my shoulders. This time, I wouldn't let anything feel unclear. I'd be direct, distant if necessary. Just get through it. When I walked into the room, Mr. Warren was sitting upright, dressed in a hospital gown again. He looked relaxed. Too relaxed. His hands were folded in his lap, and his expression was unreadable. "Good morning," I greeted him, trying to keep things brisk. "Let's get you prepped." He smiled at me again, that same unsettling confidence in his eyes. "I'm glad it's you." I paused. "Let's focus on your care today." He didn't say anything more as I approached, adjusting his foretubing and checking the monitor. I kept my movements clinical, careful not to linger. But as I leaned slightly to adjust the cuff on his arm, he spoke again, soft, almost conspiratorial. "I've been thinking about you." My jaw clenched. "Mr. Warren, I'm here to assist with your care, not engage in personal conversation." He didn't react much, just smiled like he had expected that response. His eyes followed my movements with unsettling focus. Suddenly, the door opened. I nearly jumped, relieved to see someone else step inside. But my relief was short-lived. It wasn't the doctor. It was a woman, mid-40s, sharp features, well-dressed, but not in scrubs. She stepped in with purpose, her gaze scanning the room, her eyes locked onto me, then shifted to Mr. Warren. Her voice was calm, but tight. "Am I interrupting something?" Mr. Warren's expression faltered just slightly. "No, not at all." I straightened up, heart pounding. "I was just finishing up. I'll leave you two alone." I slipped past her and out into the hallway before she could say anything more. As the door closed behind me, I exhaled sharply. The woman's face was still vivid in my mind, her piercing eyes, her controlled tone. That was his wife. I didn't need confirmation to know it, and she knew, or at least she suspected something. Back at the nurse's station, I tried to push the encounter out of my head. But I couldn't stop thinking about the look she gave me, like she had seen something in that room she wasn't supposed to, and I wasn't sure if I had just walked away from something dangerous or something humiliating. Later that afternoon, I was organizing files when another message came in. "Mr. Warren has asked for you again tomorrow. Wants you to assist during the follow-up exam." I stared at the screen, stunned. I had to put a stop to this. I approached the lead nurse, Dana, and asked if someone else could be assigned to Mr. Warren for the next day. "He seems a little too comfortable," I said carefully. "I'd prefer some space." Dana frowned. "We're a little short tomorrow, but I'll see what I can do." I didn't feel reassured. The next day arrived faster than I wanted it to. I checked the roster. My name was still next to Warren's. I took a deep breath and prepared myself. This time, I wasn't just going in as a nurse. I was going in with boundaries, and I was ready to make those clear. When I entered the room, he was already waiting. This time, the air felt different. He wasn't smirking. He wasn't relaxed. He was staring out the window, hands clenched on his lap. "I wanted to talk to you," he said quietly, not turning around. I didn't move past the doorway. "About what?" He slowly turned his head, meeting my eyes. "About what happened before." I stayed where I was, keeping my voice calm. "I'm here to assist with your care, Mr. Warren. If you have something else to discuss, it should be with administration." He shook his head slowly. "You don't have to pretend. I know you felt it too." I felt a chill creep down my spine. "I think you've misunderstood," I said, firmly. "Whatever you think happened didn't happen." He leaned forward slightly. "You didn't walk away the first time." Just then, the door creaked open again. It wasn't the doctor. It was her, his wife. She stepped in quietly, eyes immediately sweeping across the room, landing on me, and then on him. "What's going on here?" she asked coolly. I took a step back. I was just leaving. As I walked past her and out the door, I felt her gaze following me, sharp as glass. In the hallway. I took a breath I hadn't, realized I was holding. Something was deeply wrong, and I had a terrible feeling this wasn't over. The rest of that shift felt like I was walking through fog. Every time I passed the hallway near exam room 3, I tensed, expecting Mr. Warren, or worse, his wife, to reappear. I kept my head down, focusing on charts, vitals, and patient check-ins, doing my best to pretend the unease wasn't lingering just beneath the surface. But it was. I couldn't stop thinking about the way he looked at me, the words he'd said, or the chilling calm in his wife's voice when she walked in and asked what was going on. It didn't help that I kept getting the same notification on my work. "Tablet, Mr. Warren has requested you for his next visit." It was like a shadow I couldn't shake. By the end of the day, I was exhausted. I clocked out and headed toward the staff exit, eager to leave the building and breathe some fresh air. But just as I rounded the corner, I saw him. Mr. Warren was standing by the double doors, coat on, waiting. I froze mid-step. "I just wanted to talk," he said, his voice lower, more casual, like we were two friends meeting after work. I glanced around. A few nurses were still walking past the nurses' station, but no one seemed to notice. "Mr. Warren, this isn't appropriate." He stepped closer. "You don't have to be scared of me. I'm not scared." I lied, but I am uncomfortable. You've crossed a line. Before I could turn to leave, a voice called out from behind me. "Jenna." It was Mark, one of the junior staff from radiology. He was waving, smiling. I turned back toward him instinctively, grateful for the distraction. By the time I turned around again, Mr. Warren had already stepped back, his face unreadable. "Another time, then," he murmured. I left without saying a word. The next day, I told Dana again I needed someone else to take over Mr. Warren's care. She promised to see what she could do, but with our tight staffing, I wasn't optimistic. I avoided his hallway entirely, filling in wherever else I could, trying to reclaim a sense of normalcy. That afternoon, during a quick break in the staff room, I received a message on my tablet. "Patient Warren requesting Nurse Jenna. Urgent." My stomach turned. I almost deleted it, almost ignored it. But I didn't. Instead, I grabbed my badge, straightened my scrubs, and made my way back to room 3. If he tried anything again, I was going to shut it down immediately. When I entered the room, I expected him to start speaking right away. He didn't. Mr. Warren was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring out the window again, his face more serious than before. "I need to speak with you," he said, not looking at me. I kept my tone neutral. "About your care?" "No. About what happened." I stayed near the door. "Mr. Warren, I've already explained." He turned, cutting me off. "You think you're the only one confused?" I blinked, caught off guard. I don't want to play games, he said, rising slowly to his feet. But you can't deny there's something here. You haven't told anyone. That means something. That means I'm trying to keep things professional, I snapped. He stepped closer, but I held my ground. Then, in a flash, he reached out and grabbed my wrist. Don't, I said, pulling my arm away immediately. He gave a faint smile. You're not going to tell anyone, are you? Because you know how this will look. That's when the door creaked again. And, standing just outside, partially in shadow, was his wife. She had been there long enough to hear something. Her expression was cold, impossibly unreadable. She didn't say a word, just stared. I backed away quickly, slipping out of the room without another glance at either of them. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I didn't know what Mrs. Warren had heard. I didn't know what she believed. But I knew something had changed. Later, that evening, just as I was about to leave the clinic for good that night, I spotted her again, Mrs. Warren, waiting at the front desk. I need a word, she said curtly, her voice low but direct. I hesitated, but nodded. She led me into a small and used office down the hall. The moment the door closed, she turned to face me, arms crossed. I know what you've been doing with my husband. My heart dropped. No, ma'am, it's not what you think. Don't lie, she snapped. I've seen the way he looks at you, the way you respond. I've done nothing inappropriate, I said, trying to stay calm. You're not the first, she said coldly, but you can be the last. And with that, she left I stood there alone, the air heavy around me. The lines had blurred, the rules had changed, and whatever this was, it wasn't over. The next few days passed in a blur of stress and caution. I stuck to the far wings of the clinic, avoiding exam room 3 entirely. I even changed my break schedule just to keep my distance from both Mr. Warren and his wife. But the weight of what had happened never left me. Her warning echoed in my mind like a ticking clock. Still, nothing prepared me for what came next. It was late in the evening, and most of the staff had already left. I was finishing up paperwork by the nurses' station when I noticed Mr. Warren, standing near the end of the hall, alone, waiting. My breath caught. He wasn't supposed to be there anymore. His checkups were over. So why was he lingering? I stood up, ready to leave through the back exit. But as I turned the corner, he stepped forward. Jenna, he said, his voice low, almost tired. I need to talk. I think we've said enough. I replied quickly, trying to move past him, but he blocked my path gently, not aggressively, just enough to force me to listen. She talked to you, didn't she? He asked. I nodded, keeping my posture straight. Yes, she did. And I think it's best that we stop whatever this is before it becomes something worse. But instead of stepping back, he smiled. Slow, unsettling. She doesn't know the half of it. That's when I felt it again. That tension. That danger. Before I could react, he reached out and grabbed my wrist. Let go of me, I snapped, yanking myself free. This is harassment. You're not going to report me, he said calmly, because you know how this will play out. Your word against mine. My mouth opened to respond, but I stopped because standing behind him, just outside the hallway shadows, was his wife. She had heard everything. The hallway was suddenly cold, silent. Mr. Warren froze, realizing what I was seeing over his shoulder. He turned slowly. Mrs. Warren stood with her arms folded, her face blank. But her eyes, they were sharp, calculating. Is everything okay here? She asked, her voice far too calm. I stepped back instinctively. I was just leaving. I made it past both of them without another word and rushed toward the exit, but my heart wouldn't stop pounding. Had she heard enough to confront him? Would she confront me again? I didn't want to find out. I thought that would be the end of it. But as I reached, For the door to leave the clinic, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned, ready to react. It was her. Mrs. Warren. "Wait," she said softly. I stared at her, unsure whether to run or listen. But something about her tone made me freeze. "We need to talk," she added, gesturing toward an empty consultation room nearby. I followed her, reluctantly. Once inside, she closed the door and turned to face me, her expression unreadable. "I've seen how he looks at you," she said. "I know what he's capable of." My mouth went dry. "Then why?" "I'm not here to threaten you," she said firmly. "I'm here to help. You." "What?" "I'm not the woman you think I am," she continued. "Tom, my husband, has a dark side. He manipulates people, especially women. I've seen him do it before. I've let it slide until now." I stayed silent. She pulled out a folder from her handbag and handed it to me. Inside were photos, documents, messages, things that painted a picture of someone I never expected. "He's been doing this for years," she said. "Not just nurses, colleagues, neighbors, even a family friend." My hands trembled as I flipped through the contents. "You see," she said, her voice suddenly calm again, "this isn't just about you or me, it's about power, and he's not going to stop unless someone forces him to." I looked up. "Why tell me all this?" She reached back into her bag and pulled out a small, silver key. "Because I want you to help me expose him." "What?" "You already have one foot in the fire," she said. "So why not burn it down?" I felt dizzy, the room spinning slightly. Was she serious? Was this a trap? Or was she truly done playing the role of the perfect wife? Before I could answer, she opened the door. "Think about it," she said as she walked out. "But don't take too long. He's already planning his next move." I was left standing there, folder in hand, key in the other, trapped in something deeper and darker than I'd ever imagined. And now I had to decide, walk away and pretend none of this ever happened, or stay and become part of whatever came next. Thank you for listening to this episode's story. Don't forget to subscribe and check out more content to discover the many fascinating shades of life. Transcribed by https://Otter AI